everybody. My dad thinks his podcast is amazing, so please subscribe, give it 5 stars or whatever, and maybe he'll finally stop talking about it. Anyways, welcome to Sober At.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Sober as Fuck. Season 2, episode, I have no idea at this point.
Season
5, 6, 12, I don't know. So before we get started, I just always want to throw out a trigger warning. We talk about substance abuse, addiction, self-harm, domestic violence, eating disorders, all of the things, anything you can think about. So be aware of that. If you're ever listening or watching our podcast and you feel triggered or you start having any sort of thoughts, definitely make sure that you're prioritizing your own mental health over anything else. And we have tons of resources. Never hesitate to reach out to us. But the number one thing is make sure that you're checking in with yourself, because some of the things we talk about, you know, they can hit home.
For sure.
Secondly, if you are watching and you stay with us, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share. I always say share. We like to keep our content free and accessible and inclusive to everybody. And the way that we do that is by you sending it to your friends, your family, anybody.
And rate and review too. We definitely want you to rate us on all platforms. Leave a review for the actual podcast that you listen to. We would really appreciate that.
That's
Anything
wonderful.
else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Today we have a very special guest. It's actually just happened to be a book I just finished a couple weeks ago.
Hold it up.
And if you've followed me on Instagram, you've seen me talk about this and actually advertise it. It's a hell of a read. I've had a lot of friends already order this.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. But anyway, I want to welcome in my buddy, Joshua Deen.
Hello. There I am.
Hey, Joshua. How are you, buddy?
Doing good, Ryan. Jess, thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yes. Thank you for coming on, man. We appreciate it. And it was that was one hell of a read. I'm not going to lie.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, it was kind of like I did in my platform that I'm in, Reframe, I did what's called we call it a speaker share. You know, once a week you get on, you talk about yourself for an hour and you basically talk about your journey, what you've been through, all the shit, how you've come out on the other side. Mine lasted 2.5 hours. When it was supposed to be like an hour. So I thought, I should probably write a book. And it was funny, the similarities between you and I and, you know, all the shit we kind of went through and then getting out, you know, on the other side was just, it's powerful, man. It's a damn good book for sure.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
What I really liked about your book too, and I've read I'm a pretty voracious reader, but I've read a lot of like self-help and recovery books, things like that. And they're all fantastic, but I think a lot of people see them and there's so much redundancy and they can be very long, and that can be daunting to a lot of people who are looking for information, but maybe aren't so much into reading. Mm-hmm. You packed so much good shit into, I don't want to say few pages, but that's what I liked about it is you're like, listen, I'm not trying to like beat a dead horse here. You've got to want it. You have to work the program. This is my story. Your program can look like whatever you want, but at the end of the day, there's no secret sauce. There's no big revelation. I know that some people have a rock bottom, some people don't. It sounds so simple, but it's not. You literally have to wake up in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I don't fucking want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And until that happens, it doesn't matter what anybody else's story is or what you're trying to do. And I really, really, really liked that you were just like really to the point with that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm a no bullshit kind of person, and I wanted to bleed on those pages, like uncomfortably so at points. You know, I didn't care about embarrassing stories or how stupid, because I wanted to paint the picture of exactly what my life was like. And I actually don't think the book really it framed it accurately, because it felt like I have so many stories that I don't even fucking remember. Like one of my friends, Shauna, I think I put it in the dedications. She probably remembers more of the shit I did than me. um, because I would have conversations with her after a night and just try to like put the pieces together of my fucking life. And, you know, it was chaos. It was utter fucking chaos. And it's, you know, I tried to explain that as best I could in the book, but, you know, more importantly, how I got out of it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. How you got out of it. What was, you know, for everybody listening, watching, what was like the moment you had, you know, the light bulb goes off. It just says, I can't fucking do this anymore.
Well, it was the accumulation of 20 years, a little over 20 years of drinking. Mm-hmm. I knew in my 20s that it was killing me, but it was part of the game. It's just what you do. If you're going to be a fucking rock star, mm-hmm. you have to do these things. And it was, I've always been fortunate to be self-aware my entire life. And I have a lot of songs that I've written like in my 20s that were about like, I know this is ruining my life, but it's just what you do. I just accepted it as part of my existence. And when I got into my 30s, I was losing relationships. I was finding myself really losing control and not being able to manage it correctly. You know, I was able to maintain a job. I was able to not drink so much during the week, like Monday through Friday, for the most part. Like if there was a hockey game I was going to, all bets were off. It's like, fuck it, I'm going to be mm-hmm. hungover on a Wednesday. But it was affecting my life and my relationships, and I was not sleeping well, and I was just tired. I hate saying it, but sick and tired of being sick and tired, you know, this beat to death fucking cliche, but it's true. And I got to the point, like you said, where it's just, I couldn't do it anymore. And I had an accident. Well, it was a Sunday. I was walking down the street to get my last couple beers for the evening, and the neighborhood drunk Tony on the corner, he looked at me as I was stumbling, and he's, "Oh man, you're looking roasty toasty." I was like, "Fuck." Drunk Tony just called me roasty toasty. Like, this is not a good endorsement of my life. And you know, I got my 2 tall cans. I was walking back, and I tripped and smacked my face on the sidewalk. And I was like, dude, I cannot fucking do this anymore. This is ridiculous. I was very self-aware and conscious in that moment, even though I was stumbling drunk. But it was just the fucking last straw. And I didn't even plan on, like, there was no premeditated plan to quit drinking. It was after that fall, I have to try to dry out for 30 days. And that was it. It was the accumulation of a million straws on the back of the camel. Mm-hmm. And the camel just said, "Fuck you, man."
Yeah, that was,
I can't do it.
Yeah. And that's kind of where, you know, we parallel, because, you know, I didn't trip and fall on my face, but I probably should have my last night of drinking.
You had a few times. Maybe that wasn't like the, you know.
But my very last night, you know, very drunk, made an ass out of myself. And I consciously made the decision that night, you know, before I even went to sleep, that I'm fucking done with this. I'm not going to do this anymore. I was advantageous about, you know, trying AA or anything like that. And I just happened to find a different platform that worked for me. Mm-hmm. You know, what I thought was real intriguing about you and reading in your book was, you know, you really didn't work a program. You worked Joshua Deen's program.
Yeah.
So if you kind of tell us a little bit about that, what that looked like, you know, day one, you know, how you decided I'm done with this shit, and how I'm moving on from there.
Yeah. Well, in my tenure as a professional drinker, I racked up 4 DUIs. So
Yeah.
I went to quite a few meetings because I was forced to.
Right.
And not being a religious person, that atmosphere can be jarring. 'Cause I just didn't resonate. I mean, at the time I had to go to the meetings too. I was not looking to quit anyway, but I had experience with the platform of it and how it worked, and it didn't resonate with me, and it was never even a thing that I thought about it, because I isolate, and so when I'm determined to do something, I will dig in and figure out the best way for me. So what I did was I started burying my head in self-help books, which is extremely beneficial, because not drinking anymore or quitting whatever it is that you need to quit, whatever addiction or thing that you're obsessively compulsively doing, it's all a head game. So when you can navigate your thoughts around what it is that you are trying to rid your life of, that's everything. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, because in my 20s I quit smoking, and I got hypnosis for that. So the power of the mind is everything. Your perception of the world is everything. So it's not the alcohol that you want, it's what the alcohol does. So you have to work your head around the uncomfortable feelings and the reason why you're drinking. And that's something that AA doesn't really address. It doesn't talk about the why you're drinking. It doesn't talk about buried trauma, depression. It's an antiquated program that was written by religious people for religious people, as far as I can.
And
I
that time
tell
period.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was written in the 1930s, and it hasn't updated. I mean, you're not going to find words like dopamine in there, or
Right.
suppressed trauma, things like that. There's better ways to do it, and I know it helps a lot of people. I don't want to throw it under the bus too much. However, it's just not up to the times. I mean, if you were looking for a doctor, if you had an ailment, even something that was just mildly bugging you, you would not go to a doctor that had a less than 10% success rate using tools from the 1930s. So update the program.
Yeah.
You know, that's that was my mindset going forward. So books like even books that you wouldn't necessarily attach to addiction, things like 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. David Goggins, if you know that guy, he's Navy SEAL, fucking psychopath, but psychopath in the best possible way. Like that's motivation. And imagine, so like the powerless thing. Imagine telling David Goggins he was powerless to overcome his problems. There's no way. And there's his thing. I mean, if people aren't familiar, he had a rough growing up, and he was kind of fat and had a bad job as an exterminator. And he looked himself in the mirror and he's like, fuck, I got to change, which is not so much different than my drinking or anybody else's problem, because it's a mental problem. He was stuck in his own head, and he broke out of his shell, and he just had reservoir of discipline that is unparalleled to anybody on the planet. But it's a head game. So when you read books like his books on basic psychology, and bury your head in all the good materials, especially on YouTube. I found this guy, I believe I don't want to fuck this up, it's Kevin O'Hara, I believe, and he was just some Scottish dude that would walk around in the woods with a selfie stick and talk about drinking. But he wasn't a stepper, and I had like the similar philosophies, and he just talked about how he just quit drinking. and also autobiographies of rock stars like Duff McKagan, and like reading Heroin Diaries, Motley Crue, things like that. Those are inspiring for like relapse, because out of every single story I have ever read, there's not been one good story where someone was sober or just stopped drinking for a few years. They got to a point where they were comfortable. It was like, oh, well, I deserve a drink. I'm going to fucking try it. Not one of those stories ends well. Not one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like, that's never been an option for me. It's like scorched earth.
Yeah.
So that was a very long-winded answer to your question, but I read,
No.
I filled my head with just completely positive, motivating materials. Started waking up at 5, exercise, hobbies, anything to keep me busy those first 30 to 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it's simple. Like I don't even think about it. It's not even a whisper in my head. And I think that's another thing about AA is I got the feeling people just kind of live in the past. Like even the terminology cast a shadow. Like some people like to choose saying that they're still in recovery, even though they haven't touched anything for years and years and years. It's like, I don't understand that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we talk a lot. So I don't have any substance abuse issues, and people listening are like, okay, Jess, we get it. You say this every fucking episode, but some people listen to one episode, some people listen to all of them, but mine is not any sort of substance abuse, but I have a shit ton of mental health stuff, right? Like OCD, ADHD, binge eating disorder, childhood trauma. I mean, I have all of the acronyms. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much every single person I love and adore in my life has struggled with addiction, which I even know that that's a term, however you want to self-define. And the common thread that I've seen with people, mental health, addiction, whatever you want to call it, is that whatever you're struggling with is a symptom of the problem. And I think it's great that you use like the medical analogy for doctors, because I do something similar too. Like say that you cut your finger cooking, right? And you leave it untreated. Well, over time, it could get infected and it's going to fester, and it could even potentially cause you to have to like get your hand amputated, right? So you go to the doctor, and the first thing they're going to do is treat the symptom. Okay. And they're going to say, well, we need to get the infection under control. So that is the waking up at 5 a.m. That is the whatever program, because everybody works a program, even if it's of their own making. And I think that that's what it is. Like, you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. You don't have to go on this like crazy, testosterone, I'm going to work out every day, but whatever it is that resonates with you, you have to be 100% in. And you have to be consistent and self-accountable. And then once the infection is treated, then you actually have to figure out like what's going on and how to heal the wound. And what we try to have, what we are really doing with this season of Sober as Fuck is trying to talk to people about how this is a mental health. This is absolutely medically related, or nature versus nurture. I mean, if you look at all of the research, we really don't know that much about what causes this in some people. We know that genetics is a big part of it, but your environment and your lifestyle. We've had a lot of musicians on the podcast as well. And I didn't do it professionally, but I danced for 15 years. I did community theater my entire life. Performing arts is still a huge, huge passion of mine. I always tell people I feel more myself when I'm singing. When I'm sad, I sing. When I'm happy, I'm sing. When I'm pissed off at this, when I sing, I feel it. And there is this societal narrative that oh man, your best work comes when you're fucked up, right? When you're hallucinating. And that is such a toxic narrative for people, that your best work, your best self your most enlightened state of mind is when you are quite literally out of your mind. So something that I ask every musician or even sports, like, what is the difference you felt with your music? Like, even when you go back and listen to your music and the way that you resonate now, like when you sit down and you're writing or playing or whatever you're doing, what has that relationship with yourself and something that is valuable to you, how has that changed and evolved?
Well, I play a lot better. I can tell you that.
That's a consistent answer too. Like, well,
Yeah, the first show I played after I quit drinking, I couldn't believe how good I was at playing drums. It wasn't like I wasn't hungover. So that's the thing too, especially if you're on the road. I would pace myself kind of like you stick to beer. I mean, even on the road, you're drinking 20 beers a day that's just to survive, just so you're not shaking. But I would cool it before the show, and then after the show, it's fucking off to the races.
mm-hmm.
But even playing hungover, you're not playing 100% at all. So in that regard, it's night and day difference. It's amazing to have your complete faculties together and be able to just breeze through things where before I would struggle. Like, especially if if I had a show after like a Coke night, or I did something speedy the night before and just had no sleep and it was all shakes. Like, not only does that fuck up your stamina, but it fucks with your head, like anxiety problems. I had a show in Belgium once, and it was pretty big. It was a festival, several thousand people in front of me, and I almost had a panic attack on stage. It was halfway through the songs, and I was so when you're playing drums, you try to hold the sticks with these hands, and if your hands get tired and cramped, you hold it like that, which is not good because you can't finesse what you're doing.
Right.
And I felt the panic attack coming, and I was like, holy fucking shit. It took every ounce of my being not to run off that stage.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that don't happen anymore, and I can enjoy myself, and I know exactly what I'm playing. And as far as like the writing goes, I mean, I don't quite write as much as I did before. And I'm not gonna lie, like the the darkness that I was in, I mean, a lot of it was alcohol induced and just my natural proclivity for depression. It did allow me to write some good stuff. Like there was a joke in Family Guy. He was talking about Miles Davis. He's all, post heroin or pre heroin. He's all no.
Yeah.
Talking about his writing. He's all no junk, no soul.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not going to glamorize. Don't drink to fucking write better or do drugs. But I mean, it's just part of the thing. It's a different modality, like as far as your mindset. So I did extract material from those dark days, but I didn't write drunk or fucked up. It was always the day after. So like, because
that's interesting.
Yeah. If you're that fucked up, you're not going to be able to cobble together a song well. So maybe the idea would come from that, but it was a lot of reflection on my darkness. Mm-hmm. So if I didn't have that thing in me, it's kind of like some of the best songs are about being heartbroken. You know, you wouldn't have this great song if you didn't have to go through something fucking terrible. You know what I mean? So I can equate it to that. But as far as like my singing and playing drums, it's night and day difference. Mm-hmm. It's just.
I bet you connect with your music too. Like it's not. it's not just something that you're putting out there for everybody else. Like, oh, I have to, like you said, like I have to get on here and I have to push through this because all these people are looking. Like when you are sober, you're enjoying it just as much as everybody else. Like you have a riff and you're like, fuck, I nailed that. Like that was amazing.
In the moment all the time.
And I like something you said about how, you know, a lot of the music you wrote were from those dark days. Something that we do is we talk a lot about how you can hold space for both, right? Like, no, we are not saying like, go and like be a drunk for 20 years because it's going to make you like an amazingly enlightened person. Like that's not what we're saying. However, no matter what it is, you know, some of our best memories are when he was very drunk, right? Like it's okay. That's another thing. And to circle back to the AA thing, I agree with you that a lot of those archaic programs and systems are all about like self-loathing. Like you have to hate the person you were when you were living in that. And like you wear that as like an albatross around your neck. And it's just like this, you know, if you've seen, what is it? Is it Game of Thrones? You know, shame, 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 whatever. Like you don't have to do that. Like we have amazing stories from when he was drunk. It doesn't make the drinking okay or happy, but I'm not gonna let those go. Like those moments were still great because you can hold space for both. You can appreciate what you've been through and who it made you, and also recognize that it was toxic at the same time. So whenever, and I say this about a lot of people, but it's so true. Your mentality about things reminds me a lot of my brother. He was in addiction for 20 years, and not just alcohol. I mean, like all of the things. And we had a lot of childhood trauma, but we grew up with a lot of privilege on the other side of that too. Like we had a lot of opportunities that were presented to us. And so he was also one of those people that, you know, if he wanted anything, he got it. He instantly got it, which really caused him to go deeper into that addiction. And he's been sober now for 5 years. And talk about a fucking transformation, like just phenomenal. And we've always been super close. And I was talking to him, I don't remember when, and he's the same way. He's like, I don't look back on that and think, oh my gosh, I was such a horrible person. He's like, I'm thankful that I was living under a bridge and hadn't eaten in a week and had nothing, because it is exactly what wrote my story for today. And today, like, I am proud of myself. I love the work that I do. He works for like intake for detox, like a detox center. And he's like one of the higher ups. And he, you know, he's again, like found his passion for education and all of these things. And he's like, it's not shame that I hold. It was a blessing. It saved my life. And I am better than I've ever been. And, you know, some of the AA stuff worked for him. Like he's one of those people who he's like, when I'm in control of my decision, everything goes to shit. So I have to believe that I hand that control over. But at the same time, he also believes and like has that where there's something different for everybody. Like it's whatever works for you.
Yeah.
And again, not to be redundant, but I really like how you know, everybody's like, well, what was, and we ask too for people listening, but what was the moment? What was the thing? What was this? You don't need a reason or a moment or falling over on your face or a rock bottom or anything to just decide to do something different. Like your story does not have to be like something terrible. You could be drinking or using and nothing bad ever happened in your life and be like, you know what? I just don't want to do this anymore. And I think that's the thing too. People are waiting for the bottom to fall out. It doesn't have to fall out. You can literally just wake up and go, fuck this. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
I like what you said there, because it's my life, that 20 years, it's part of my character. I don't think I would change it. The only things that I regret are when I was mean or just cruel for the sake of being cruel. Like those things I'm embarrassed of, and I hate that. And those were the things that came, from being drunk. But all the trouble, like even the jail, fuck, it's an interesting story. You know what I mean? And you learn, like I almost when I meet people and they've never had a relationship that was kind of not so good with a substance, I kind of don't trust them. It's like it's such a way to get to know yourself. Like I have been to the fucking pits of hell with myself. Like literally almost died intentionally and unintentionally. I know what fucking darkness is. And I know that I got out of it and transcended it. So as far as a character building exercise, holy
Right.
I went through a hell of a trip. And like having that experience, I know I can fucking handle anything. Mm-hmm. Seriously, anything. Because I have seen the darkest side of myself. And I was able to get out of it without anybody's help. And that was one of the things I want to express in the book too. And also to your point, when you get to 40 and you're hungover and you're just like the quality of your life, but the opportunity cost that alcohol takes from you is immense. Because if you are waking up hungover or just slightly dragging your feet, you don't want to learn anything new. You don't want to try new things. And it just is so limiting and takes all of your life. Even if you're doing the one drink a night that you think is okay, it is fucking your sleep. And if you're tired, you are not doing anything right. So if you're not suffering the ailments of like heavy drinking, look up the ailments of sleep deprivation, because I will guarantee you are suffering some of those ailments, to say again. But it takes so much from you and doesn't give you anything back. Like, so I wanted to write the book for the people that want to just get on to a next level of their life. Because I feel like a lot of people, especially my age, when you're getting into your 40s, they don't know what to do because it's what they've done their whole adult life. Especially for me, I started drinking kind of late at 19 because all my other buddies were drinking in the high school teen years. I was the only one that didn't. And then I jumped head first off that fucking boat into the deep end. But if you're doing something your whole adult life and you kind of built your whole existence around it, it's frightening to move on, because it's like, what the fuck do I do now? And that was one of the things I went through in my head, was I don't know what to do without this. All my buddies drink, all the things that you tell yourself to keep you in the prison, your fucking mental head prison, scares you from wanting to try to leave. And you don't have to be living under a bridge or in a hospital with your liver trying to jump out of your body. You don't have to get to the point where it's like a serious health issue to want to stop. You want to stop because you want a better life.
Yeah.
And when you're that deep in, you're living under your own bridge. You're living in your own hospital. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's the thing. Sometimes, I mean, falling on your face or living under a bridge or having a moment, those are blessings in and of themselves, because you can no longer hide, right? That's almost, I mean, I'm not trying to quantify it, but at least if it's showing on the outside, then you can't hide it anymore. There are so many people who are like, but I work a stable job and I've never gotten arrested and I take care of my kids and I do this and I do that. It's like, yeah, but if I crack your brain open, I bet it is a fucking shit show. And you're going to like the health of, or your like deterioration of your health from living in fight or flight and the anxiety and the sleep deprivation and all of that. That's a prison all in of itself. I gave up drinking last summer not for any reason other than we went on a vacation and I had one drink and I woke up the next day and I was like, my head hurts. I have a migraine. I already get migraines anyways. My belly hurts. And I was just like, this doesn't bring anything positive to my life. Like, I don't have an issue with it. Well, but it has an issue with me and it doesn't bring anything positive. And then once I really quit drinking and then I started going deeper into my mental health stuff, I thought, without me ever touching my lips to alcohol, it has quite literally almost killed every person I have ever loved. Like, I haven't even had to touch it for it to take me to the pits of hell with it. And if that is not a testament to how it is poison and will literally ruin everything in your life, I don't know what else is. Like, it really is a poison. And why do I want to partake in something that has taken the most beautiful, wonderful, empathetic, compassionate, smart, amazing, fun, crazy people I've ever known and just almost rotted them from the inside out? I don't want anything to do with that. That's horrible. That's a monster, So I like that you say that too, because you're right. You don't have to present any which way for it to literally be killing you.
Yeah, exactly. Even the subtleness, the subtle insidiousness of it, and the opportunity cost that will ruin your life, even though you're able to pay rent or whatever you do. You're not fulfilling your I don't want to say destiny to sound like a fucking
that's okay
soap opera.
You took me back to Back to the Future. That's what I was thinking. You're my density. Sorry.
No. You're just not living to your full potential. That's what I wanted to say.
There you go. There.
God damn it. It took a while, but I got there. You're just not. You're not on your path. You're not in a groove, and it will slowly take everything from you. And I've seen so many people in that trap that I know potentially they could be in such a better place, but you're stuck in this loop of just work, drink, repeat. And it's hard to get out of that if you're not self-aware, or if you think that it's the only thing you have. Like some of the people in the music scene and guys getting up there in age, still trying to party like they're 20. It's like, fuck. I don't know how you're doing that, first off, but you also kind of look stupid. That shit's a young man's game. That's the point I wanted to get across, and you brought it up. Enjoy what you did, but you don't have to stay there. It's a nice place to visit, no place to live. You don't want to die like that, because it's I was having these visions of, I always thought I was going to join the 27 club, die super early. And I didn't. And now I'm like, well, now I'm drunk and fat and just tired. And it sucks. I don't want to die like this.
And we even romanticize the 27 club. You know what I mean? If you really look into that, if you do so the way that my ADHD works is when I am intrigued about something, you'll ask me within 12 hours, I know literally everything about it, more than I should know. And I did a deep dive into that too, and how we romanticize even the 27 club. I mean, yes, it's sad and tragic, but there's this sick layer of how it's almost like a badge of honor somehow.
Yeah.
And it's the societal pressure that we, or the narrative that we put on that alone. And for the record, and I know you're itching to say something, I'm gonna let you get there. But to throw this out there, partying sober is so much more fucking fun than partying fucked up. Going to concerts and hanging out and going out with your friends and singing, dancing, whatever your recording, whatever your party looks like, even if it's just at home, chilling out, it is so much more fucking fun sober.
Yeah. And you don't, that was a thing too. The non-alcoholic beer. So I was reading a bunch of things that people say, oh, it's a slippery slope, you shouldn't do it. And so I waited a year before I had a non-alcoholic beer. I was like, this is fucking great. This is so rad. Like because they're good now. Like before,
they're really good.
All there was O'Doul's, and O'Doul's is fucking terrible.
Shit.
Yeah, it's like drinking a carbonated nutsack. But
That's right.
now you got Athletic, you got Guinness. Like the Guinness, sometimes I have to look at the can twice to make sure there's no alcohol. But they're fucking great, and you can go to bars and enjoy yourself, and remember leaving the bar, and still like maintain your respect for yourself
and drive home and be like, I could get pulled over right fucking now.
Yeah, exactly. If a cop pulls me over, come on.
Come on, bring it.
I welcome. If
You're
like the cops behind me,
the first time he drove, I was still drinking at the time, but he drove home after we went out, and he had NA beers, and he goes, this is kind of fucked up, but I kind of want to get pulled over. Yeah. And it's kind of like turning 21 and asking someone, please check my ID, like breathalyze me right now. Here, you want a field sobriety test? Like, I'm like, well, let's not do that. He's like, no, but just like, to know I have like no looking over my shoulder. Zero.
Yeah, exactly. And being able to have a nice beer after a long day. You can still do that. You can still go to a bar and have drinks. There's this conception or misconception, I should say, that you can't do all these things anymore, and that's total bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you're a hardcore alcoholic and you need further assistance and the regimen of AA and rehab, of course, that's not recommended. But if you're, I don't know, I would put myself at semi-professional drinker. I mean, I don't know if a true alcoholic would consider me an alcoholic, but I sure did have a fucking problem that caused a lot of trouble in my life for over 20 years, and I was not able to have just one drink. So I don't know if that makes me an alcoholic or not. But I do know is I can go to a bar and have NA beers with buddies that are drinking real drinks, and I don't fucking flinch. It is not, there is not a whisper in my head that wants alcohol. I'm not triggered, and you can have those experiences. And I feel like some people are scared that they're not going to be able to do that. And a lot of that is from the bullshit that you read. Like for instance, myself, like, oh, it's a slippery slope. If you have an NA beer, you're going to go back. It's like, no, that was fucking lies.
And if you tell people that, see, and there's, yeah, but if you tell people that, then you're creating that. Like, I 100% agree with you. It's like, don't think about the elephant in the room. Well, now that's all you can think about. If you tell people, like, be careful because it's a slippery slope. Well, I didn't really think about that until you said it. We put all these on other people. It's a projection, right? And if you date it back, anything like that is, well, once upon a time, it was a slippery slope for one person. And so now it is just like the overall rule for everybody. But you're the same way. My brother's been the same way. And like, they're like, I don't want to. My mom passed last year, and the most powerful thing that I've ever heard my brother say was, he's like, I don't want to use, I don't want to drink. This fucking sucks. I feel terrible. Like, I want to rip my skin off in grief, but I want to feel and be present for every bit of it. It hurts like hell, and I still don't want to drink. Why? Yeah. Why? I want to animalistically mourn and grieve. Right. And I don't want to drink. And that sounds fucked up, but that is the healthiest thing I think I've ever heard anybody ever say, is that I want to be fully present in the shittiness of it.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Being mindful, that is just such a huge thing. I also dove pretty heavily into Eastern philosophies, Taoism and Buddhism, and being mindful of your emotions, the good and the bad, and sitting with it. There's a lot of pressure, societal pressure, or just general human pressure to always be happy. It's like, we're not always happy. And it's okay to have feelings and sit with it and let it crest like a wave and go over you. And being able to do that unstained or undiluted with alcohol is the best way to do that. And it's just a much healthier process to get over things like that.
Yeah. Well, the book again is Last Call Stupid, Joshua Deen with us. And so I got two questions about the book. Number one, what got you to write it? And number two, what are you hoping that your reader takes away from the book?
Well, I had the title for the book around a year after I quit drinking. And I wanted to write the story explaining how bad my drinking problem was and how I was able to walk away without the help of AA and rehab. Especially in America, AA is just synonymous with drinking problem. If you mention drinking problem, the first thing out of someone's mouth is go to a meeting. Like, no, don't go to a fucking meeting. Figure out why you're drinking. Figure out your own traps and why you're doing the things that you're doing. And I wanted to write it to let people know that you can just move on. You don't have to call yourself an alcoholic. You don't have to be in endless perpetual recovery. You can set it down and say, I don't drink anymore, and move on with your life. It doesn't have to be, I mean, it's monumental for you because you were transcending something that was potentially giving you a lot of fucking headaches, but you don't have to necessarily make it your identity. And you can just move on from it without the fucking big parade. You don't have to do all the shit that you think you have to in order to quit. And that's why I wrote it. And I chipped away at it for 5 years until it took the shape that it is now. And that's basically it. I wanted to give people hope that partied as hard as I did and know that there's life on the other side where you don't even think about alcohol. It's not even a thought, a fleeting fucking breeze through my head. It's done. That part of my life is done. So that's the message I wanted to get across, and I wanted to do it with hopefully some sort of entertainment value and a couple chuckles.
I love it. I love that you still to identify as like a rock star. You're like, you don't have to give up any pieces of yourself for something. Like you are still you.
Yeah.
You still are a musician. You're still a fucking rock star. You can still laugh at some of the dumb shit you did.
Yeah.
It's all part of who you are, right? Like I like that don't ever let one thing be all about who you are. Like, don't ever just be all consuming one thing. You know, just speaking from a woman's perspective, like when I had a kid, everybody's like, oh gosh, you know, you're going to change. I didn't fucking change. I'm the same person I was with a child. I mean, she's almost 14 now. This has been a million years ago. When we got married, you know, we say all the time, like, I love you so much, but you're not my other half. Like we are two solo people. Whatever your job is, whatever it is. I mean, it could be anything in your life. You get down to the base of it and you are such a collection of so many things that make you who you are. Don't ever let any one thing just be 100% of your identity. Like you said, that's so limiting and that's so fucking boring, man. Like who just wants to be like, oh yeah, I'm sober. Okay, but what else is there about you?
Yeah.
I'm
Who are you?
Sober. You know, like, okay, so you don't drink. Like, what, like that, so I don't have to worry about holding your hair back while you puke. Cool. But like, so what are we doing tonight? Like, that's not, I think that when we get to that point where it's not a big deal, and I always like to remind people, you don't owe anybody an explanation for why you don't drink. Like, somebody's like, oh my God, you don't drink? You're like, yeah. So are we still going? Like, just, you're right. Move on from it. Like, who fucking cares?
Yeah, just say you don't drink anymore, and that's it. That's the end of the story. You don't have to fucking knock drinks out of everybody's hand and be the fucking alcohol police. Just don't drink. Just keep to your own agenda. And to circle back to something you said, Jess, the authenticity. I used to think that I was being my most authentic self when I drank, and that's fucking garbage. You were just this grotesque, belligerent, just fucking train wreck. And you're not being authentic. You think you are. And I can see it in people too. Like when someone passes a threshold after it's usually around the second drink, and I can see a demeanor change and they think they're fucking being loose and cool. It's like, oh my God, you're cringy. You don't understand how you're behaving. It's funny to see that perspective and then apply that in retrospect to my own behavior. Because God damn, I was just stupid. Like just so embarrassing. And you're not being authentic. That's the point I wanted to get across. Like actually
I've always wanted to do sort of like a placebo research study. I'm like, we should throw a keg party at our house and have like a big ass keg with nothing but NA beers in it and not tell anybody and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Because it would be interesting to see, like, obviously the alcohol, there's, a physical and medical component there. But how much is it psychological that you are playing directly into what you think this life of the party, like drunk, loosey-goosey, like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. You know what I mean? I just think it would be interesting. Maybe one day. So if you come to our house and we're having a party.
You never know.
You never know.
Well, I've noticed with people, like some people that I know that still drink, if I have, for instance, like a Heineken Zero, just having the bottle gives them the placebo effect. Because if you're sitting there, if you're at a bar or somewhere and someone's holding a plastic water bottle, it's kind of like, I don't know, some people get uncomfortable with that. Because I remember in my drinking days, if someone did that, I was like, get the fuck away from me with your water and your health. Like, I want to,
That's right.
I don't want to see this.
How dare you be hydrated in front of me?
You can see people's demeanor change and just their level of comfortability change if you too are holding a bottle. It doesn't matter if it's alcoholic or not. It's just that visual representation of, a alcoholic beverage, even though it's not. It is a placebo effect, and it has it just affects the mood because unfortunately the narrative is drinks is party time, drinks is celebration, and that whole thing has to change from everybody's perspective. But I mean, that's not going to happen in our lifetimes, but hopefully soon it is going that way. But it's when you have that, it does have a placebo effect. And it like, even for myself too, like having that drink is, it has a calming effect just as if it was alcoholic. But now I don't have heartburn and I'm not waking up in jail.
Having to scour through your phone going, oh God, who did I really fucking piss off last night?
Oh God, that was the worst. Or waking up without your fucking pants. That happened to me. That happened to me so many fucking times. I have a theory about it. So like, because when I go to bed, I just sleep in boxers. So whenever I was drunk, I'm assuming I just wanted to get comfortable and I'm just going to sleep wherever I'm sleeping, and I would just take my pants off.
Just take the pants off. There you go.
I would wake up in so many scenarios just missing my pants.
Pantless.
Yeah. Fucking great.
That needs to be the name of your next book. Pantless.
Pantless.
Pantless with Joshua Deen.
That's right.
I like it.
All right. Well,
that leads us to our last question, actually.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to let you forget this time.
So in your book, and I don't want you to tell this story because I want the readers to enjoy it, but
Okay.
there's one that really got me, and I couldn't put it down. Actually, I think I read it a couple times just because it had me on the edge of my seat, and it was when you got pulled over, you thought you were getting a DUI, and the guy told you to walk home. Then you got this bright idea of waiting a little while and getting back in your car. And I'll let everybody read that story because that's just, I could not, because it's scary because I've had a similar situation like that. And hearing you talk about it and then reliving it to me was just crazy. I mean, it really had me on the edge of my seat. Awesome story. That you lived through it, thank God, but crazy story. But what I did want to ask you is back in your drinking days, and I know you have plenty of them because you got all these pantless stories. I want to get like a funny drunken story from you, not in your book.
Or high or whatever,
or
it doesn't matter.
Or whatever. Or it could be a funny ass pee story, or you could tell both. If something where you know, whatever, either way.
And it's got to be funny because this goes back to reflecting back and not carrying these things as
That's
shame.
right.
Being
No
able to
shame.
look back and be like, that was embarrassing, but that was really fucking funny. Like,
Oh, of course. I have no shame.
I mean, you don't wear pants. It's fine.
That's right.
Something not in the book.
Pantless.
Okay. There was my buddy's house. He was a bandmate. It was I was still living at my parents' house, and this house was 3 miles away from where I lived, and it was the party house, and we would jam in the garage and just party. There were sofas, and this was back in the day where there were pagers, and I was there, and suddenly I woke up at home at my parents' house. I was like, how the fuck did I get home? And so I was looking for my shit, and I couldn't find my pager. I was like, fuck, I must have left it at my buddy's house. And I got up and I drove back over there, and lo and behold, there were my pants with my pager on the floor of the garage, which means I had taken my pants off. I had put my shoes on. I had got to my car wearing nothing but a shirt like fucking like Donald Duck. And I had driven home just wearing a shirt, boxers, and shoes and no pants.
There you go.
So that is something. Yeah.
You seriously need to write a collection of short stories and name it Pantless.
Well, I'm just so obviously if it was a pager, this is back before there were cameras everywhere, like Ring doorbells. But I would have loved to have seen myself walking to my car with no pants on, or if I had got stopped that night. Right,
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
The cop pulled me over and said, "What the fuck is happening?" So that was one story
great.
out of the millions upon millions that I can barely remember.
That's all right.
Yeah,
We appreciate it.
derobing Dean.
Yeah,
Love it.
that shit happened to me on a weekly basis. I had a story every fucking week of some crazy nonsense that because you just, when you drink, you don't, it's like buying a plane ticket and you have no idea where you're going to fucking wind up. And you just wind up or at least me, I wound up in the most bizarre circumstances. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, I get a royalty if you write short stories and call it Pantless, okay?
Yeah.
Just say no.
You get a point on the next book.
That's right. Well, Joshua, thank you
Been
so
great.
much. Again, everybody, the book is Last Call Stupid, Joshua Deen. It is available on Amazon. So please check it out if you haven't already.
It's a great read.
It's a great read. And Joshua, I've already had some people reach out to me that have bought it already.
Hell yeah.
Last week and read it and absolutely loved it.
Awesome.
and
Awesome.
loved your stories and everything. It's such a great book, brother. I really appreciate it.
Brian, Jess, thank you so much. Your show is great, and I appreciate your time and letting me be a part of this because you're doing some cool shit.
Absolutely.
We'll have you back on.
We'll do it again.
We'll have to get together and we'll party like rock stars with our NA beers and go to sleep by 9. I can't wait.
Hell yeah. That sounds like a great time.
That's right.
Thanks, Josh. Have a good
thanks, buddy. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye. If you love the podcast, which I know you do, please like, subscribe,
and hit that notification bell to get
Boom.
notified every time we post.
That's right. Dropping them, baby. Word.